If you can understand the Euthyphro dilemma, then you understand divine command theory. But before we get to that dilemma, I want to say a few things. First of all, divine command theory has some advantages over the other theories you've looked at. You might think also it has some disadvantages. So why choose one theory as opposed to another? You're not going to find a theory that is perfect. Most likely, you won't find one that you think is perfect. Each theory will have some problems with it. That's just the nature of the debate. That's the way philosophy works. We're talking about moral goodness. This isn't something we can put under a microscope. And so we're not going to get the kind of certainty we're looking for. Why then do some philosophers choose one theory over another? Well, in philosophy, we choose that theory that we think has the most going for it. That's the most plausible. So suppose you find cultural relativism plausible. However, as I point out in chapter 1, if cultural relativism is true, there's no such thing as moral progress. We didn't make moral progress with the abolition of slavery, for instance. If you find that to be highly problematic, if you think that, clearly we made moral progress with the abolition of slavery, and you think that's pretty clear, pretty certain, then that will give you a strong reason to reject cultural relativism. Divine command theory doesn't have that implication. Divine command theory actually implies that we did make progress with the abolition of slavery. Or cultural relativism implies that the minority point of view is always wrong. And you might think, well, clearly the minority point of view can be right in some cases. Divine command theory, on the other hand, allows that the minority point of view can be correct. Because if the minority agrees with God, if the minority says racism is wrong, and God forbids racism, then that minority point of view is the correct one. So you need to ask yourself, what problems with each of these theories do I take to be the most difficult to get around? And you choose that theory that you think has the most going for it, that has the least significant problems. Divine command theorists will say, yeah, there are problems with my view that I'm working on. But, they say, at least my view doesn't imply that we didn't make progress with the abolition of slavery, because clearly we did. So that's the way this reasoning works. You're sort of balancing on scales the evidence for and against each view. And you choose that theory that you think is the most reasonable, the most rational, the most plausible, the one that's most probably true, given the evidence. Now, the Euthyphro dilemma. The Euthyphro dilemma was developed by Plato. If you've never heard of Plato, Plato was an ancient Greek philosopher. He was taught by Socrates. Hopefully you've heard of the name Socrates. Socrates taught Plato, and Plato wrote many dialogues. We have a number of his writings. Plato taught Aristotle, and Aristotle was also a famous ancient Greek philosopher. And in one of Plato's dialogue is actually called the Euthyphro, he raises this problem, and the problem directly affects divine command theory. So it's something we ought to consider. And if you can figure out what the divine command theorist is going to say with regard to this problem, then that tells us you understand what the divine command theorist is committed to, how to define divine command theory.